Everybody, and thank you for joining DyneTech for today's webinar on cyber insurance strategies to mitigate risk and manage premiums. My name is Linda Ford, and I will help moderate today's presentation. During the presentation, all lines will remain muted. However, feel free to ask questions at any time by using the Q&A panel or the chat feature. We are also recording today's event, and I will send everybody a copy of the recording to share with colleagues or to review again tomorrow. So today I'm pleased to turn the floor over to our presenter, Joe Rubino, DyneTech's Senior Vice President. Take it away, Joe.
Thank you, Linda. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on what coast you're located on, and thanks for attending today's event. You know, when we talk about mitigating risk and managed premiums, this is going to be a little bit different of a presentation for us here at DyneTech. We not only lived through the whole cyber insurance journey and all the new requirements around cyber insurance, but we also are involved with customers in many different levels to help them implement security controls and a number of requirements for compliance that allows you to get cyber insurance. And we thought we'd take an opportunity to talk about what we've done in the past, because we just went through this journey, as I just mentioned. Talk about what we're hearing from our customers as we meet with customers, because due to the fact that we're doing a lot of work in that space. But really, it's the demand for connectivity, convenience, and productivity, by technology keeps increasing. That demand challenges and threatens service disruption for all our organizations, whether it's natural, accidental, or criminal. It's very important today to address all these issues, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. So just a quick overview. We're going to do a quick review of who DyneTech is for some of you that may not know who we are and what we do in our business. We're going to talk a little bit about the background of the insurance business. We tend to work a lot with insurance companies and brokers to help our customers achieve a posture that allows them to get cyber insurance, and talk a little bit about where the industry is heading, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we can do to help you out as the requirements to achieve cyber insurance they're growing almost quarterly. With that being said, I have a couple of panelists with me today. I have it's a term of endearment that I use here. I have our IT director, Mike Makar. Mike Makar has been heavily involved and had the brunt of responding to a lot of the inquiries and the controls required for insurance. And I also have Mike McManus. He's the Vice President of Cybersecurity Solutions. He runs our security operations. Mike was also heavily involved. And another gentleman that's on the phone, but I don't think he's a panelist, is we have Ken Shepardson. He's my esteemed colleague out of finance, who really ran cyber insurance, out of the Office of Finance for DyneTech. And we're seeing this as we engage customers, that it's not just an IT exercise. It's compliance departments, it's the finance departments. The whole company is really involved when it comes to the acquisition of either cyber insurance or the renewal capabilities. So we'll get into a little bit of that. And as we move forward, let me just give you a quick update on who DyneTech is. And DyneTech, we're a $150 million national systems integrator, heavy presence in the Northeast, heavy presence in the Southeast, and then as we cross over to the western part of the U.S., we're heavy in the Southwest of California, Nevada, and Arizona. We're probably about 170 people, and 75% of our people are technology or technically related people. So that would include our architects, delivery personnel, on-site managed services, and a whole slew of people we have on site helping customers run their operations. We focus on 5 major areas of ITs. I won't get into them, but for network infrastructure, the modern data center, we don't just sell you the products. We have a whole principal architect team that can help you assess where you're at today, where your business is headed, what technologies are out there to help meet the business requirements and help do those designs, and we earn the ability to do business with you by leveraging that value add, as opposed to just selling you products. In the Microsoft world, we're one of We're directly managed by Microsoft. We're one of about 50 companies that's directly managed by Microsoft. We're certified in other cloud-based platforms, and we partner up with Microsoft to enable the cloud technologies that you may have as part of your CSP licensing or EA licensing. And about 40% of our business now is security and security-related technologies, from enterprise deployment of security products to right up through assessments, compliance, architecture. We're going to hear more about this throughout our presentation. So we have the ability to work with Microsoft, your applications, talking to the data center in hybrid modern data center, speaking to your networking equipment. It's all about the end user's experience, whether it's a client, constituent, and customer, or internal use. And so we have the ability to put the infrastructure together, leverage best of breed security technology to protect the organization. And most recently, over the past four and a half years, we've been actually running the ability to monitor all those security systems that you have in your organization 24/7, 365. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. A strong vertical, we're very heavy in government, education, healthcare, and also we've got a pretty large contingent of gaming customers due to our Las Vegas business area. If you look at cyber insurance, oops, I think I went too far. If you look at the cyber insurance today, if you look at, it's a lifeline event of a major incident. Obviously, the challenges are still there: phishing, ransomware, remote workforces, offered, potential for stolen credentials, and we're seeing an increasing sophisticated cybersecurity practice to deal with the sophistication that we're seeing in some of the attempts to breach your organization. If you look at the cyber attacks in general, I mean, small business of 1,000 users or less are really the big target. It's followed by healthcare, government agencies, and K-12. And the value in those organizations is really the PII, the personally identifiable information for sale, for dark web resale. So it's becoming necessary for all your organizations for cyber insurance. It's not a question of what you should buy, but how much coverage do you need? What's your current security posture? How does it stack up against the security controls we're going to talk about here, just to qualify for the insurance? And we're going to talk a little bit more about what's driving the increasing in rates. I mean, carriers were experiencing a rise in cyber incidents, 35% alone. When you look at the cost of a breach, and there's a myriad of factors that play into that, the claims and the dollar amount of those claims are really ultimately impacting the premium prices that are resulting to a 50 to 100% increase in premium increases. And that 50 to 100% is after you have everything in line with what the cyber insurance companies want to see you have in place to be compliant, just to get those. And I'll tell you from our experience, we thought we were in pretty good shape. We meet all the requirements, and we fall at the upper end of that rate increase. And I'm pretty sure you're going to start seeing the same thing as you either go out to get insurance, or if you're up for renewal, there's a lot of changes in place in the cybersecurity market. For years, insurance covered ransomware under traditional property and casualty policies. They got, obviously due to the claims and the reserves, they then went and reclassified the policies under separate CI policies, and those losses just impacted a pool of capital available to clients for the insurances. They in some cases the payouts exceeded 100% of the premiums that they were bringing in to meet the catastrophic losses. So we had a number of insurers exit the market due to concerns noted, we just talked about, and others are reducing the amount of capital deployed on a given risk in order to maintain and limit their own portfolio's exposure. And all those are just really resulting in an increase in your premiums. The considerations from a breach, we talked about this, these are what the cyber insurance companies are looking at. It's no longer the breach. It's in addition to paying the ransom, they're looking at your financial loss. They're looking at the damages due to your reputation. Could be declared and you go public and you have to publicize your breach. Operational downtime is huge. If anybody runs tabletop exercises or simulates a breach, the operational downtime, you got potential legal action depending on your business, and of course the sensitive data loss that comes along with that. So all these are considerations of a cyber breach, and should be considerations for you when as you're looking for policies to make sure you've got a policy that and you get the right coverage for these different areas in the event that you are breached. What does cyber insurance help? Time is money. When it breaches and other issues stand in the way of doing business, that interruption adds to real dollars. You hear a lot about ransomware, and the latest trend now is cyber extortion. So we've had customers that have been breached, ransomware. They've paid the ransom, and then there's a follow-on extortion, another opportunity for the bad actors to go extort more money out by charging you another fee for the data that they already downloaded. So they've locked you up with ransomware. They've already downloaded some data, and it gives them two revenue streams to go generate in that event. They also in litigation expenses. Again, depending on your market and your driver, there's litigation expenses. There's a forensic investigation trying to figure out what happened and what was the breadth of that breach, and then just in general the crisis management. Within the crisis management, it's not only the incident response, it's rebuilding the network infrastructure or the systems that were impacted by the ransomware. It's how do you what is your public facing communication when you declare the breach? What's your internal communication and all these processes, and then some of the losses. So not only is the loss of the extortion, not only the loss due or loss or payment due to ransomware, it's also all the litigation and all the other expenses that you see here. That surround the breach that are taken into consideration by insurance companies as they come to terms on what your premium might be. So insurers are paying closer attention to the risk of a cyber event and as it relates to a considerable number of insured simultaneously. So if you look at the SolarWinds breach, there's some other breaches out there from Kaseya. It's the impact of that one breach, not in one organization, but that one breach and how it impacts a considerable number of customers at the same time. And those factors are now being considered in the cyber insurance and the risk to the insurers to the impact of when these supply chain type issues become prevalent is what's the impact to all the customers that they have insured. The ransomware poses a significant threat. It's escalating in frequency and severity. Attacks have grown 62% since 2019. Ransomware it used to be encrypting files, and you'd get the key to encrypt the files, and everybody's familiar with that. But I think the biggest opportunity for the bad actors is to roll the ransomware with extortion, where they threaten to release or sell all the sensitive data. And so that if you take that into consideration, so they got increased underwriting, limited capacity to do the deals, the restrictive terms and conditions. We're going to talk a little bit about it at the highest level, and then it all leads to increasing pricing retentions. And quite frankly, there's a finite number of companies out there today that are actually offering cyber insurance, and it's not a big pool of vendors. Again, ransomware, extortion cost increases the cost of the breach. Just to summarize, the financial losses due to legal actions, liabilities. The business interruption is huge. If you were to run through a tabletop exercise or a breach exercise, you could somewhat determine what your downtime would look like. That business interruption, it's it's the costs of doing business and not doing business. It's also the cost of your reputation. And again, we're seeing more of the secondary payment to ransoms as the attacks become more sophisticated. Cyber insurance considerations for you, for some of the areas. I just gotta move this over a second so I can see the bullets. Excuse me. Some of the cyber insurance considerations for you and as a consumer of cyber insurance in DynTech, and this is what we saw. The 50 to 100% premium increase is it's fact. It's really, that's where it's all headed. You need to start thinking about your budgeting for those activities. The claim dollars and extortion ransom payments, the legal fees, forensic remedial costs, incident response. You need to give some thought on how much coverage you need in all those areas as they all get rolled up as part of your premium. And keep in mind, you've got a sales team that's selling you policies. You got a claims team that pays out that determines what's gonna pay out for that claim. And you put a lot of those payouts at risk if you don't have those cyber insurance, the cyber insurance controls that we're going to talk about in place. So if you have them in place, you need to keep them in place, because in the event of a breach or a compromise, the investigation is going to find out, how did it pass those controls that you were supposed to have up, were those controls down, and that could negatively impact the payment of a claim. When we endeavored on our cyber insurance, our journey, I like to call it, previous years, we had to make sure we had MFA, we had a questionnaire, we had to assess the company's controls that we filled out, we had a price, and we got in cyber insurance. That has drastically changed since last year. Now there's still a questionnaire with way more detail than what we've experienced before. There's way more requirements to achieve a level of security where you'll even be offered cyber insurance, and there's more of an auditing and verification of the security controls. And what we also found out is if you work with an insurance broker, I mean, it's very similar to what you do to us as customers. Sometimes you have to go to bid to get the best price. But if you leverage an insurance broker and not just one specific insurer, the brokers act on your behalf to help ensure that you're up to compliance with the requirements for cyber insurance, and then they'll actually take it to bid, and I'll share with you a little bit about how that worked for us. But essentially, we ended up, after we've got all we got all the requirements in line, we actually were on the phone and we interviewed a number of insurers. That was all arranged by our insurance broker. So again, if you work with a broker, you want to hold him the expectation that he's working for you and he's going to help you get the best price. The best price is still going to be steep, so you're not going to get a great price. You're still going to pay the premium increase, but you'll get the best price out of all of them if you leverage your broker. And you leverage your insurance broker and set that expectation. The considerations for cyber insurance. Some of this is obvious. It's looking at 12 or more specific security controls. There's a narrative component to this. There's auditing, including pen testing. The company's gonna ask what security projects have been completed since your last renewal. What is your roadmap for the next 12 to 14 months? Trending items related to supply chain, specifically Log4j in the future. And then there's operational, technical questions in a bit of detail. So a lot of these is leveraging third parties like DynTech or other companies to help acquire and deploy the cyber insurance products and services. You want to contact your broker long before your renewal comes around, so you can quickly meet the requirements of cyber insurance and work with your broker to go to bid. If you document your policies and controls, you can spend a lot of time doing this. But in addition to the cybersecurity controls, there's a lot of documentation, other practices and policies. We're going to talk more about that. You've got to assess the questionnaire I mentioned, there's still a questionnaire. It's way more detailed. There's a number of pages. You got to assess that against your existing controls, and then and you really want to address your insufficient control requirements, because it could actually get you denied of cyber insurance or impact your deductible by the course of millions of dollars. So here's the major controls required by cyber CI companies right now. If you take a look at multi-factor authentication, I mentioned before, MFA was the original control. It's what all the insurers required, and then there was a questionnaire, and in some cases there may have been an auditing. That was last year. This year we come into it, and these are all the controls that are required right now today by all the cyber insurance companies. So it's way more than MFA. It's endpoint detection, EDR, MDR, XDR, and your endpoints. You can read them, but secured, tested backup, privileged access management, email filtering, and web security, patch management and vulnerability management. But it's more than just having the ability to do that. There's a cadence expectation on when you run these systems and you do the patching. Cyber incident response planning and testing. Those range from having a written cyber response plan to, depending on the size and your organization, to actually conducting simulated cyber breaches and tabletop exercises. Cybersecurity awareness training and phishing. Many customers do this today, but it needs more. It's being looked at as being more disciplined and run in a more pragmatic fashion, and under some guidelines that get to pretty much dictated by the CI companies. Hardening techniques for RDP, logging and network protections. There's a requirement now for 24/7 monitoring of your environment, and there's a lot of questions in the initial assessment documents on how you're doing that, and the number of people. It gets very detailed. How do you protect the end-of-life systems that are still required out there in healthcare? They have a lot of older systems that are running various instruments in hospitals, and there's got to be detailed on how they're going to be either replaced or protected. And then another one which required a lot of time from us, and will require a lot of time from you, is the vendor supply chain risk management. It's anybody that comes in your organization, your applications. It's the security and a description of who accesses what in your system, both internally, third party. It needs to be signed off by C-level folks as your plan, and that required a significant amount of work from our organization when we're applying. Again, CI carriers are going to ask you a whole bunch of information, but generally the trend is, what did you do last year? And in some cases, the customer said they did MFA. They didn't have MFA completely implemented. Their deductible went from thousands of dollars to up over $1 million, which created an opportunity for them to go invest in the controls to get them up to speed for what they need, for what's going on now. For what they're applying for now. There's other key security projects on the roadmap for 12. They want to know what your project roadmap looks like for security, and if there's not any completed projects now falling into the category of one of the 12 controls, from an insurability perspective, those controls actually matter most in negotiating efforts, and will impact your premium. And again, we've met all the requirements, and we still had a significant increase in our premium. Some of the trending topics we're seeing out, beyond the 12 controls we're talking about. It's they want specific vulnerability impact of like Log4j and anything else that emerges in the future. There's more questions coming around about the biometric data questions and overall operational technology questions. And they're not required today, but they're trending on the list of additional controls in the future that help determine your premiums and rates. Here's another. This is a pretty interesting slide. do you know your security scorecard? And I get a kick out of this. So there's a website called bitsite.com, and they claim to be the standard in security ratings. And from our perspective, they are, because it impacted our our conversations with our broker. But not only do you have to do all the 12 controls, and you have to do all this compliance documentation, there's a website called bitsite.com that the insurers will run on your organization. And very similar to your credit score, if you're going to buy a house or get a loan and you go out and get your credit score, you have to download the information to make sure it's all accurate. And in my case, there's a lot of Joe Rubinos out there, so every time I download a credit document, I have to go clean up some other Joe Rubinos that aren't me, to improve my credit score. And when we're talking to customers about bitsite.com, and you can go there after this presentation. I don't want to get you guys distracted and logging in right now. But you can go download and you get a free assessment of what your security scorecard is. Those assessments impact your premium and policy structure. I'll tell you that right now. So I would suggest go to bitsite.com, the standard and security ratings. I still get a kick out of that, and go download your assessment scorecard. That will generate a report on, you see those threat indicator scoring metrics in the middle of the page. They actually go through and they do an external assessment against all these indicators. They score them, and then there's a report. And then when you start going into the report, you're potentially going to find information that's grossly inaccurate, it's outdated, and in some cases the data is many years old. In some cases, showing up on reports as data that's over 15 years old. So you need to go work on your security scorecard, download your just more work for the IT folks to do, and more stuff in the compliance, and go assess reported areas, and then you want to address all those errors and maximize that score and make sure they have accurate data, so it'll reflect a better score when it gets run in the future by the insurers. So just a little cyber insurance, summary approach here. We started about 3 months ahead of time. We should probably went more. So as soon as you get your cyber insurance in place, you need to make sure all those controls are up and running to what you declared for cyber insurance. And then 6 months later, you need to start taking a look at what are the new controls, what's new, what are they going to require moving forward, and apply and start getting ahead of those controls. And then as you progress through the controls, and it's going to take you some time to get there, and have all this stuff in place, your controls, your documentation, your security score, all ready to roll. So at that point, you can go to your broker and then immediately go to have him take you to bid to the finite number of cyber insurance carriers that are out there today. And even in those cases, when you go through that exercise, they're still going to come back with more questions. It's a bi-directional interview. So they'll ask some financial and some business questions. They'll ask about some compliance questions in that interview, and then they'll go away and produce their insurance policy with the various coverages. And due to our nature of our business, as we're a managed services provider, we provide services for customer. There's a pretty large requirement on us to handle some significant volume of cyber insurance for some of the contracts we have, et cetera. It mentioned to download the BitSite report, the brokers, engage a broker for price quotes. We talked about that, but I think ultimately, as I talk to our IT folks here, what's next? We're there. We got our cyber insurance. We paying a fortune, and we've got our policy in place. And what's next? And IT says we can't stop. We have to maintain what we declared on as controls. We need to keep them up and running. We can't have any, which we do anyways, but it's just from an awareness perspective. We can't let up. And then we're going to be proactive in looking for the new controls and get ahead of those. So and go into like a maintenance mode. So any increased reporting or documentation requirements we're going to work on, and if there's any other controls, we'll figure out what we can, what needs to be done there, and we'll put together a project plan from that perspective. There's up in some of the emerging controls and other trending compliance items I mentioned a little bit before. They're going to be looking for more information on privacy. So today there's a compliant. If you're in California, if you're in the California contingent, you do business in California, there's a CCPA compliance, and don't question me on that. Please don't pose that as a question. My IT guys know what that's about. In CA, there's more compliance coming in 2023 for California. There's in New York State, there's a K through 12 Law 2D that's pretty prevalent in the state of New York. And then there's discussions about tighter compliance alignment with the myriad of regulatory laws that are out there now and that are emerging. And overall, I mentioned before, deep response and discipline on patching cadence. It's not only just patching when you do it. There's specific requirements cyber insurance carriers are starting to come up with where they want to see certain timeframes met to run your scans and to do the patching. Written policy, I can't understate the written policy. From the finance department, from IT, from compliance out of our SOC, there's a lot of documentation. And then this other small process called DNS leakage test that was required, and that's done by third-party companies. It's not a major test, but this was something that was a last-minute requirement by one of the carriers, and that we ran for them. So in summary, the controls are only getting more controls. There's going to be more requirements and documentation and discipline around the way you run these controls in the future for cyber insurance. So how can DynTech help? So I want to take a few minutes and talk to you how we help. We have a comprehensive cyber security program. We have a technical writer on board. So if we look at some of the controls here, MFA, endpoint, there's a number of their technology related controls. But if you start looking into cyber incident response planning and testing, we wrote a cyber incident response plan. It's been accepted by the insurance program, so we can help you out there. There's the cybersecurity awareness training and phishing testing. Most customers run this. Most customers don't like running it. There's going to be a discipline to this, and we can help you run there. But essentially, from DynTech, we can help in all these areas. So when you look at MFA, it's not just MFA and multi-factor authentication. There's specific requirements within MFA that you need to. It's not just standing it up. There's specific requirements technically that need to be run from MFA. If you look at EDR, there's a number of companies out there. We support them all, and we can help you, stand out those environments, but monitor those environments. The same for encrypted backup. If you look at privileged access management, that's an area we can help as well, because there are two different requirements, and sometimes the requirements within privileged access management will meet the MFA requirements. And so as you look across what you already own today, it's important to notice what the requirements are, so you just don't go out and just start building out additional new point products. We'll take a look at what you own today. We'll augment it, and then the PAM and MFA can be merged together. We end up saving some money as opposed to looking at them as individual controls. But you look at email filtering, patch management, some of the other hardening areas. So we have the ability to not only help you deploy all these controls, or maybe you have these controls in place, and we can give you some guidance on some of the nuances related to those different controls. And then we have the ability to really monitor these controls 24/7, 365 through our security operations center. So we can help you stand up these controls, make sure you're within compliance, work with you to make sure they're in compliance with the controls, and then we can monitor all those controls 24/7 and take that burden away from you, and take the operational oversight and just the time away from IT that it takes to run all these systems and stay on top of them. We partner with you to run all these systems and monitor them and let you know, so you can focus back on IT and focus back on IT projects that are important to your organization. And no difference here at DynTech as well. So we got beyond our security, but we have We have a bunch of initiatives that we're working on here to improve managed services and roll out some new services to our customers and you out there on the call today. And so this process took a lot of time. Some of the other areas for cyber incident response and planning and some of the compliance, we do have a technical writer. We have technical writers here that can help write that documentation for you, can customize it for you to help fast track that documentation to get you in compliance, and just reduce the time frame for you. We've done it. We can help you get there. And a lot of this also, it's finance, contracts, IT, security, risk management. You've got to sign off. Outside of all this, you've got to sign off on executive level sign off to approve the risk. There's external assessments and security scorecards. There's just a whole bunch of components, even beyond the 12 controls here that we can really help you out with. And so this is a little bit about, we've been doing this for a while for our customers. We expanded the whole offering. We've been doing this for our customers, and we haven't really formalized it from the perspective of we've been helping customers with all these different technology types that we talked about. But the reality is we're turning our whole experience with this to help customers into expanding our managed services, kind of aligning all the controls to run a 24/7, 365. It's too costly for organizations to build out their own security team in many cases. We can do it for a fraction of or for the price of an FTE. We take the security burden of standing up those controls and running those controls and monitoring those controls away from you so you can focus on your business. We have a lot of shared customer experience. We built out our own threat intelligence platform, leveraging curated threat intel, and then leveraging open source to provide like immediate actionable security by an in-house team. You're focused on your core business. We maintain the ability to scale and adapt to new threats, and we have the ability to monitor all your security controls. In addition to your security controls, your infrastructure as well with firewalls and IDS boxes and any other security appliances out there to give you the best to gather all that telemetry and get the best visibility we can on your security posture within your organization. And how we do all this today, we actually own and operate a security operations center in New York State for customers nationwide. We do leverage some of our other office areas for analysts. We utilize the latest security technologies and tool sets. We ensure maximum response times for security events. Our analysts are always at the forefront. We have eyes on glass. We're actively monitoring customer environments, and our analysts, they're around the clock. But I think what's important is how we implement our managed security services. When I'm out talking to customers about what they're doing today for just security operations, let alone how do they impact the other controls for cyber insurance, a lot of discussions around what value do you get out of that, and it's a myriad of responses of what customers get out of that. Sometimes it was to check a box for a certain industry that they have that there. Some people are just getting alarm and alert. They're giving them all their data. They're getting alarm and alert and data, and they're not getting a lot of context on it. And what we do is we've implemented a FedRAMP cloud-based solution where we help you build your tenant of information for SIM and SOAR. You can see all the information. You can see everything we're doing, and then we leverage a piece of software to come in and run all our. We have about 4 million indicators of compromise that are updated every 15 minutes. We built out a fair amount of automation and leverage the AI capabilities within our system to bring you really a state-of-the-art monitoring system. So when we're calling you, the customer experience isn't okay. It's an alarm and alert. It's an alarm and alert. It's alarm and alert. It's critical. We're already investigating what that situation is. We're looking at what we need to do to contain it, and then remediate that problem. And that's been a big, it's been a big differentiator for DynTech, as we're more concierge and customer experience on taking you through the whole critical alert to making sure we've eradicated it. We take time on the phone. You can log in to your, a lot of customers saying they can't see their data. Well, if and I've heard this a number of times, you can see your data, you can see the dashboards, you can see us operating in your environment. And it's really just a better collaborative way to run a SOC and SOAR, because in some cases that if you're not running 24/7, but you have 24/7 monitoring, and that box is sitting in the corner collecting dust until there's something going on and you've missed it, well, then you've missed it, and there's a whole myriad set of potential issues that come along with that. So we're proactively monitoring your environment 24/7. We alert when we have different levels of alerts. We can alert you near real time when we get a critical alert, and we're leveraging state-of-the-art technology to deliver these services and 24/7, 365. So I mentioned this is somewhat of an older slide. So we do managed security services. I just mentioned we do vulnerability management. We do security assessments. We do some consultations, and we do have. We were recently awarded by Microsoft. We're one of 30 managed security partners for Microsoft. That doesn't mean we don't encompass other technologies. We can work with any endpoint technology out there. We can work with any security appliance if there's an at-rest API. We've built connectors for customers' environments for AS400s. We're about to engage in some discussions with an AS400 security vendor to help develop a connector so their customers could be monitored in a SIM environment. And we have the ability. Some of that is we have the ability to do proof of concepts and sizing engagements with you, meaning we have a unique relationship with Microsoft where because of our status as an MSSP, we have the ability to run proof of concepts for you, show you how the technology works that we've implemented, and just give you a different view and exposure to some of the latest technologies that are happening in the SIM SOAR space. And we're happy to do it as well. But in any event, if there's an at-rest API and there's valuable security data in any of the platforms you're running, we gather all that telemetry and we're able to run it and run it in our system. So that really concludes. I think I had a half hour, so that concludes my presentation. And Linda, I'll put it back to you for any questions. And again, I have the mics here for anything technical or experience level that they might want to talk about.
Great, thank you, Joe. Just a reminder to everybody, if you have a question, feel free to use the Q&A panel or the chat feature. The first question is, how do you see the regulatory environment in healthcare in particular evolving? Do you foresee healthcare providers being required to have cybersecurity controls and/or cyber insurance in the future?
Well, we see controls evolving across the marketplace, regardless. What I'll defer to the mics and see if they've had anything from their experience.
Yeah. So hi, this is Mike McManus. I can absolutely take this one. So this is a very interesting one. So the answer to your question is yes, perhaps in both areas. So I do see that cybersecurity controls, from a control perspective, I do see that having a more rapid maturity moving forward. HIPAA has primarily dominated that space, especially in healthcare, for obvious reasons. But with the advent of cyber liability insurance to go along with all of the other various policies that most healthcare organizations have to have, I see the cyber liability space impacting HIPAA in a more stringent way, in that you'll see perhaps the insurance carriers trying to align closer to HIPAA, and or maybe even having a little bit more stringent requirements around it, especially given the fact that, PHI exposures are quite expensive. So the carriers are taking an increased risk in that space. As such, you would see that becoming a bit more stringent, and that's in my view. I would certainly expect that to happen. If I were to guess, within the next couple of years. I mean, things are evolving so rapidly right now in the cybersecurity insurance space. I would think, financial services, healthcare would probably see the quickest, I guess, adoption in that space.
Okay, then along that line, the next question is,
Yep.
what was the impact of New York DFS letter to cyber insurance providers in New York State to premiums in the fin insurance industries?
Yeah, so that's another interesting one. There has been a lot of communication out of DFS, especially in New York. That being said, there's one primary document, the 23 NYCRR 500, that has been, I guess, commented on the most. And essentially what DFS did there is they went out to the insurance providers and said, hey, listen, you're under a higher level of risk, especially in the financial services community, and they kind of, they did a pretty aggressive cost estimation exercise with that as well. So if anything, I would think that the effect on potential premiums now and moving forward, it would have an effect, whereas premiums would most likely be increasing due to the enhanced risk involved, especially with, as I mentioned earlier, with healthcare, but in this case with financial services. So I do think premiums would go up because of DFS's position. But I think it's a healthy thing, and these things are constantly being evaluated based on current risks and obviously the current threats. So
Great, thanks, Mike.
sure.
All right, I think that's all the questions we have so far. If you have any other questions that come up, feel free to reach out to marketing@dynetech.com, and I'll make sure I can connect with Mike, or Joe. I'll also be emailing you all a copy of the webinar tomorrow, so you'll have my information. Again, feel free to reach out if we can be of any service. Joe, Mike, any closing comments?
Just best of luck in your quest to either get cyber insurance or get your renewal, and we're here to help. Just reach out to your sales rep, or reach out to one of us directly, and we can chat more about our experience and what we can do to help, or just give you a sense of what we went through to meet all the requirements to get our insurance.
Yeah, and my closing thoughts on this are essentially, this industry is rapidly evolving. So you're going to see requirements change, perhaps even on a weekly basis. So, be ever vigilant, and, if we can do anything to help you along with your journey here, we'd be happy to. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you, everybody.